It is easy to make a spectacular movie about the Crusades. Ridley Scott succeeded as well. The Siege of Jerusalem turned out to be very memorable. According to the story, a village blacksmith becomes a knightly duelist and victorious military leader, proving himself a worthy opponent to the feared Saladin. And this same French blacksmith teaches the ignorant Arabs how to find water in the desert, because apparently they don't know how. The protagonist must set sail to the Holy Land to seek redemption. Ridley Scott's film is divided into two distinct parts. On the one hand, we follow the inner journey of a young man, though we can't really speak of development, as his views remain unchanged. On the other hand, we witness grand tableau of battles and sieges from the era. The message of the film is quite clear. The choice of setting and time period is no coincidence. Jerusalem remains a symbol of sectarian division even today. The story starts somewhat sluggishly. It is 1184, and a young man working as a blacksmith in France must reach the Holy Land. Liam Neeson, appearing as a father figure, persuades his alleged son, Balian of Ibelin, to cross the sea. Balian, the future legendary hero and defender of Jerusalem, takes up his paternal inheritance and, by birthright, finds himself embroiled in the internal conflicts of the Crusader states. The story is almost entirely fictional. The obligatory romantic subplot, Balian's relationship with Princess Sibylla, has no foundation even within the story, and the audience suffers through it, as it consists of only a few superficial scenes from the actors and director. The best moments of Kingdom of Heaven are the reenactments of history-shaping events. A particularly moving scene is the meeting between the leper King Baldwin IV and Sultan Saladin, evoking an era when mutual respect still influenced the course of history. The depiction of the Siege of Kerak, the Battle of Hattin, and of course the defense of Jerusalem is excellent. These sequences contain everything needed for an epic film. The film captivated audiences with its overwhelming visuals and dramatic portrayal of the Crusades. However, it took significant liberties with history, blurring the lines between historical fact and cinematic fiction. The main character, Balian of Ibelin, was a real historical figure who played a crucial role in the Crusades. He was known for his bravery and diplomatic skills. However, the film's version of Balian's life has little connection to reality. The Siege of Jerusalem was a brutal and bloody event, with both Christian and Muslim forces suffering heavy losses. It lasted for weeks, not just a few days as the film suggests. It is entirely unbelievable that the middle-aged Balian, after just a few fencing lessons, becomes a master swordsman capable of defeating famous Muslim warriors, then goes on to lead the defense of a massive fortress and city. Real knights began training in childhood. Their education started at the age of 5 or 6, serving as pages under a knight until they turned 14. At that age, they became squires and learned combat techniques. Only after proving their skills and character could they be knighted. In the film, Balian becomes the central figure of events. Summoning all his courage and knowledge, he attempts to defend the city against Saladin's legendary army. In reality, only 30 to 40 knights remained in Jerusalem, along with a few hundred squires, mercenaries, and thousands of refugees. The Christians mainly lost the siege due to the lack of trained fighters. But the film does a spectacular job of showing what a medieval siege looked like. It is worth noting that ordinary foot soldiers, Christian or Muslim, did not wear armor. It was too expensive. At most, they wore leather or cloth vests resembling armor. In contrast, the film outfits all soldiers in matching armor, as if they were wearing uniforms, something that only became common in the 17th to 18th centuries. This was likely done for visual appeal. The trebuchet, featured prominently in the film, was actually invented several decades later. Traditional catapults were likely used instead, and of course they did not launch flaming projectiles. Siege towers, as seen in the movie, were protected with animal hides, but there were far fewer of them in reality. Constructing them was complex and time-consuming. Additionally, the ground before castles was rarely smooth, making it difficult to maneuver these massive structures close to the walls. Scaling ladders were also problematic for attackers. They could never be sure of the exact height of the walls. Either their ladders were too short, leaving them stranded halfway up, or they were too long, making descent difficult. Ridley Scott is clearly fond of fire and flaming projectiles. However, such things did not exist in reality. Stone projectiles could still be deadly due to their sheer kinetic energy. Archers were present on both the attackers' and defenders' sides. When close enough to the walls, the attacking archers would unleash a barrage of arrows. Fire was not commonly used. Siege towers were prepared for such threats, carrying sand and other materials to extinguish flames easily. The battering ram is often mentioned, but we know little about how it was used and protected, perhaps as in the film, with a roofed structure. Defenders sought to disable it, sometimes dropping beams onto it or hooking onto it to pull it up. A common defense tactic shown in the film is the pouring of boiling oil or pitch on attackers, which was indeed practiced. A pivotal moment in the siege occurs when the attackers capture a bastion and plant their flag on it. This was a major psychological blow to the defenders. In the film, Balian himself rushes to tear down the enemy flag, highlighting its significance. A famous historical example of this occurred at the Siege of Belgrade in 1456, where the Hungarian hero Titus Dugović allegedly sacrificed his life to remove the Ottoman banner, a legendary act of bravery. In this same scene, we see the effectiveness of chainmail, protecting Balian's arm from being severed. While not very useful against stabbing attacks, it was effective against slashes. The film accurately portrays the brutality of a medieval siege. Anything was permitted, and Balian resolves the crisis in dramatic fashion. However, the scene where the siege tower is toppled sideways by some sort of projectile is completely unrealistic. One of the film's greatest strengths is its authentic depiction of medieval weapons and combat tactics. For example, the ambush in the forest is entirely believable. And in general, the battle scenes are among the film's best and most historically accurate elements. Looking at real history. In 1174, the 13-year-old Baldwin IV became king of Jerusalem. Known as the Leper King, he had contracted the disease in childhood and lived only until the age of 24. Despite his incurable illness, he proved to be an excellent commander and ruler. Around the same time, in 1175, the Kurdish-born and highly skilled General Saladin rose to power as Sultan. He soon unified Syria and seized control of Egypt and other territories. Tensions between the Sultan of Damascus and the King of Jerusalem steadily increased, making conflict inevitable. The gravely ill Baldwin fought against Saladin at Ascalon and nearly killed him on the battlefield. After that, Saladin avoided direct engagements with him. Despite being so weak that he had to be carried on a stretcher, Baldwin still led his armies. However, his death triggered internal strife among the Crusaders. Eventually, the weak King Guy de Lusignan took the throne, while Saladin steadily expanded his power. The reckless knight Reynald de Chatillon repeatedly attacked and looted caravans heading to Mecca, violating truces and provoking retaliation. When King Guy ordered him to stop, he refused. Saladin responded by crushing the Templar army. In June, he captured the city of Tiberias. The Crusaders, desperate to relieve the siege, marched into the summer heat without enough water. On July 3rd, exhausted, they stopped near the twin hills of Hattin, where Saladin encircled them and set fire to the dry grass around them. The Crusaders, suffocating in smoke and heat, were slaughtered. Finally, King Guy and about 150 knights surrendered. Balian fought in the battle and, along with the king, was treated with respect by Saladin. However, Reynald was personally executed by the Sultan. After conquering nearly all of Palestine, Saladin marched on Jerusalem. Balian, arriving with a small force, took charge of the city's defense. With only 30 to 40 knights available, he knighted 60 young noblemen. Saladin besieged Jerusalem on September 20th, 1187. Eventually, Balian negotiated a surrender, securing safe passage for the city's inhabitants in exchange for 30,000 Byzantine gold coins. On October 2nd, Balian handed over the keys to the citadel. Saladin ensured an orderly evacuation, preventing a massacre like the one committed by the Crusaders in 1099. By November 20th, the last refugees, led by Balian and the Patriarch, had left the city. Saladin ensured that the withdrawal from Jerusalem was orderly and that there was no massacre like the one committed by the Crusaders when they captured the city in 1099. The last refugees, likely on November 20th, left the city with Balian and the Patriarch at the forefront. Balian then joined his wife and children in the county of Tripoli. The film portrays the Crusades as a struggle for control over the Holy Land. This simplifies the complex political and religious landscape of the time. The Crusades were not merely a clash between two religions, but a highly intricate conflict. Despite its historical inaccuracies, the film has had a significant impact on the public perception of the Crusades. Its visuals and dramatic storytelling brought this historical period to a wide audience, sparking interest and debate.